came down to Ron Bellamy, who's safeties coach for Michigan, played for Hank Tierney at Ponchatoula High School. Ponchatoula just played for a state championship, and Marion Walker had a big game, and he's going to have a big week. Flipping to Michigan because of that relationship with Bellamy, I think that connection, that Louisiana connection, looms large.
All right, welcome in. We're a little bit early on National Signing Day, early edition. I'm Dennis Fithian, ready to get things underway. That was rival Sam Spiegelman talking about Marion Walker, who flips to Michigan this morning. As we get ready to get things underway, we say hi to the National Recruiting Director from Rivals and Yahoo Sports, and that is Adam Gorney, who's, I'm sure, working hard today. Adam, we appreciate a couple minutes of your time. How are you?
Of course, doing great. Flying through it. It's already 10 o'clock, and I've been up for 6 hours, so that's good.
I get what you're saying. It was easy for me to wake up today. Well, how do you see Michigan so far? They seem like they're off to a pretty good start. They do have to have some letters come in here in the afternoon to take it to the finish line, but how do you see them so far?
Yeah, it's been a great start. You know, they've flipped some guys, and that's really been where they've been most active. Getting Keon Sabb, which seemed like it was going to happen after he took that Michigan visit, even though he kind of protested that it wasn't going to happen. That's huge. He's a very talented defensive back that had been committed to Clemson for so long. And so as you see the dominoes fall, if Brent Venables is still at Clemson, I think Keon Sabb probably still is at Clemson, but he's not. So Sabb took that visit up for, I believe, the Ohio State game. Yeah, I think it was for the big win over Ohio State. And he flips. That's huge. Some other flips. Marion Walker is a really talented wide receiver. Still can put it all together, but getting him from Notre Dame never hurts. And then getting a dual threat quarterback in Alex Orji from Virginia Tech, also very big. So a great start for them. A lot of guys on the West Coast and some other pieces still have to sign, but Michigan has to be very happy today.
Yeah, you mentioned that Ohio State game, playing in the Big Ten championship game, now playing in the college football playoffs, and then, the coaching carousel, but the stability for Michigan. I would think all of those factors here is helping Michigan get hot here late, culminating in today, which, this class could end up, higher than 20 commitments.
Yeah, I mean, Dennis, you know this better than anybody. This is the time of year that Jim Harbaugh gets mentioned for the Chicago Bears job and the Indianapolis Colts job and whatever NFL job. That hasn't really happened this year as much, let's say. But yeah, that stability certainly helps. Keeping your coordinators, the success that they've had, how they've blended into the program so quickly and it looks seamless and comfortable is really a credit to Harbaugh for hiring what seems to be the right guys for those positions. Gaddis really getting it going, their success. I talked to Darius Clemens, who is still undecided, last night for a sort of a preview video of what he's going to do today. And he told me that when he was up there on his visit, the statement now is Michigan is back. And that's huge for kids to hear and to see on the field. It's not, this is what we plan to do. This is how it's going to work. This is who we're bringing in. It's look at what we've done. We have the success. We've built the success. We're going to the playoff. We beat Ohio State. Honestly, it really can't get much better right now.
I watched that video. I've got two quick questions for you. You can take as much time as you want here. You mentioned Darius Clemens, the wide receiver out of Oregon, that video that I watched, and he likes the academics at Michigan. Also, Derek Moore, both of those guys, 3:00 Eastern, are set to sign. Moore, the defensive end out of Maryland, a 4-star. What kind of predictions would you make on those two guys?
Yeah, Moore's a guy who earlier in the season our then number one offensive tackle, Julian Armella, and he went head to head, and Moore definitely won at least 50% of those reps in that game. That was very impressive. I think Michigan is the pick for him. Clemens is still hard to figure out. He didn't tip his hand last night to me. Give him credit. I definitely tried. Michigan is definitely there, though. He's an East Lansing native. He's Andrell Anthony's childhood friend. He loved the visit there. The academic part of it really, really sold him. Auburn has been there longer, and Auburn has continued to recruit him very, very hard. Oregon has come in late with Dan Lanning there, and now it looks like they have their offensive coordinator in Kenny Dillingham, who's going to come over from Florida State. That was something that Clemens was a little hesitant on about the Ducks, But that Michigan visit really pulled them right head-to-head with Auburn heading into this decision. Because this is a Michigan podcast, I'm picking Michigan.
Good work. The Maize and Blue review here. Final question for you, and this is probably the most difficult one for you. Last night, Michigan in the team rankings was at number 9. They had projected 20 commits. They're over 20 now, and here we are, just a little bit past 1 o'clock Eastern. A lot of names still out there, but what would be your best guess on maybe a ceiling for Michigan and where they could finish in the team rankings?
Yeah, if we're looking at 2 more 4 stars, this is going to be very, fluctuating over the next few hours, though, because Georgia's still going to add guys. Alabama's going to add a lot of guys. A&M still is going to add some. Others will move in, but I don't really see anybody close behind in the team rankings that's going to jump over them. Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma, possibly. So I would say that they're firmly in the top 10, could get into that 6-7 range, and I think probably that's the cap.
Great stuff. Adam, enjoy the day. Always enjoy talking with you. It's like Christmas and your birthday all at once here today, so have a great day.
Dennis, I'm always wondering, you have those glasses on all the time, but they're always on your head. I don't understand what you're doing.
Well, they're reading glasses, so I can see you pretty good from here, but if I need to look at the fine print, I definitely need to use them. I could just have them on all the time. It doesn't matter.
You look smarter. All right, Dennis, thanks, man.
All right, take care, Adam. See ya.
Bye.
There he is, Adam Gorney. He is the national recruiting director for Rivals. And, man, you don't need an alarm clock at a day like today, but I wonder what it's like. I think I know. I think it would remind me a little bit of people that have to work in an office in their cubicle. They're sitting around. But if you're a Michigan fan, and, like you're a fan of the Maize and Blue review, you're sitting there, you're checking out your phone, you're on your computer, and it's one of those things you need to refresh. You need to look every couple minutes. And, I went out and just went outside for a little bit of walk, got some air, and then I'm right back in, taking a look and seeing what's going on. So it is, it's on, and it's happening. And we're going to continue to talk about it on this afternoon live here on the Maize and Blue Review, TMBR. Guess what? If you're watching for the first time here on signing day, here every day at 1 o'clock. I try to be so far since November the 1st. I think we've hit every day at 1 o'clock. So it's a weekday live podcast where we're talking about Michigan. And there's been plenty to talk about in football and in basketball. And today is a celebration day. And we'll continue this on. We're expected to hear from Brandon Justice, the Maize and Blue recruiting editor. But I can tell you, we have the recruiting analyst for the Maize and Blue Review joining us on the line. His name is Tanner Wooten, and I can bring him onto the stream right now. There he is. Tanner, how are you? Good afternoon.
Good, Dennis. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, man. So what do you think? Michigan's got, they had some guys. Ethan Burke flipped to Texas. They had Dion Walker. Things were looking good. Maybe at the beginning of the week when they, had a late visit with him, but he did go back down there to Kentucky, and that's where he ends up. So they lost out on Burke, who flipped, and Walker, who actually never did commit. But, those were two guys. But Keon Sabb and Marion Walker from Notre Dame and Orji from Virginia Tech. And Sabb was headed to Clemson. Those are some pretty big flips to sit here as we don't have all of the names in, but that's been the maneuvering so far here in the AM and in the early afternoon.
Yeah, and, I want to mention this. It's funny you mentioned being in a cubicle. I'm in my home office. I work from home, and so I have a full-time job in addition to doing this. And so, it's hard enough trying to refresh as a fan, but when you're trying to stay up to date and make sure you're being active in the board, it's a lot to juggle. So shout out to the Michigan fans out there doing their job and, keeping in tap with the recruiting. Yeah, you mentioned it, though. I mean, Alex Orji, Virginia Tech transfer. I'm going to pronounce it that way, by the way. I mean, I think that's probably how.
Tanner, I looked up the pronunciation. I just Googled it. Now, this isn't 100% for sure. And I was going to be like you. I was going to say Orji or Orji like you are. But there's an actress. It said, okay, here's her name. It's Yvonne and Orji. And that's the way that they said it. So I thought, well,
fair enough.
But I don't know. We'll see. The way you're going, it's hey, if he could play, well, we don't even know if he's going to play quarterback or, maybe he projects.
Yeah,
there's
been, talk that he might be a guy who could transition outside of the quarterback role. But I think Michigan was in a position to take 2 quarterbacks this year and kind of maybe take some flyers, right? You have, and a long way to go in this recruitment, but in 2023, Dante Moore, Detroit King, 5-star, right up there with Arch Manning. Maybe not the amount of hype that Arch has just due to the last name, but I think Dante Moore is a legit, top 10 recruit, one of the best quarterback recruits in the last few years. So, Michigan was able to kind of take a flyer, and, you saw them try to get back in with Justin Martin on the West Coast, in addition to their current commit, Jaden Denigal. So it felt like they wanted to take another guy at quarterback, and if he transitions to another position, then that's a plus, I would say, if it doesn't work out for them. You mentioned Keon Sabb. That's big time. That's big time recruiting. You talk about the chips falling your way, though. When you look at Michigan, Brent Venables takes the job, defensive coordinator at Clemson, takes the head job at Oklahoma, opens the door for Michigan to come in, because I don't think they would have landed him if Venables was still the defensive coordinator at Clemson. So, the chips kind of fell Michigan's way a little bit there. Sometimes you need some good luck. You can have a bunch of great recruiters, but sometimes you need a little bit of luck. And then Marion Walker, I posted this on the board when he committed, Notre Dame decommit. Kid's a stud. I really am impressed with his game. I think very similar to current target Darius Clemens in the fact that they're big-bodied, athletically gifted receivers. So really like Marion Walker. I think he projects to the offensive side of the ball, though he's played both sides in high school. So, good start to the day so far. As we get to the later afternoon, we're looking at Derek Moore and Darius Clemens, who I mentioned as kind of the couple big targets to end the day. But, you mentioned Ethan Burke. Look, Austin Westlake kid, grew up in Austin. I'm sure he's a Texas fan. That offer came in from Steve Sarkisian last night. What are you going to do if you're Michigan? Kind of a guy that it seemed like Michigan kind of went back and forth on if he was, had a committable offer, if he was a take. Ultimately, they decided he was committed for 2 weeks. So, it's just kind of how recruiting goes. And then, as well, Cavante Henry right now is a guy who is not signing until February. So the one thing about this class, as I look at it, I think it's very solid. I think it's very well-rounded. And it's crazy to say this because of the amount of production that Michigan's gotten from the edge position. That's kind of the one spot right now that's up in the air. So we'll see if there's any more guys that come to the limelight for Michigan as we get to, into February and beyond the bowl season, as we have another signing day in February. So we'll see. But right now, I know Cavante Henry's still committed to Michigan, defensive end, edge player out of California, although with the departure of Courtney Morgan to Washington, that one seems a little more up in the air right now. So we'll see. The Burke one, I think he was a guy who probably projected 2 to 3 years out anyway. So, with the transfer portal and maybe some grad transfers, maybe Michigan can alleviate that a little bit. But all in all, a really solid day. And, look, if they can get Moore and Clemens, those are 2 top 100 legitimate kind of guys. That's a hell of a way to close out your recruiting class.
No doubt. And, we saw it last year with Michigan State and Rayshawn Benny. He was green. Then the early signing period, he didn't sign, which, meant he was, torn. And, maybe Michigan can keep Henry and do kind of a reverse of Rayshawn Benny, but we'll see on that. You guys and I hope to follow a little bit closer here myself, but like when Brian Kelly left Notre Dame, I immediately looked at the class there. They had a 4-star linebacker, a 4-star athlete from Traverse City, and also a linebacker. So immediately I thought of those guys. But I saw Josh Henschke, the publisher here at the Maize and Blue Review. He's like, no, Marion Walker is the one to keep an eye out on. He had that one immediately. So knowing what you're talking about helps in this business.
Yeah, and, Walker, has been rumored to flip for months now. And, the Brian Kelly departure, it didn't seem like hurt Notre Dame all that much. I think Marcus Freeman, I'll tell you what, I think as a side note, I think Notre Dame's recruiting is going to really take off, even though they still, they send top 10 classes every year. But if they put the results on the field, Marcus Freeman, young, energetic guy, elite recruiter by all accounts, I think Notre Dame's going to start to take off, which may not be the best for Michigan. We'll see how it plays out. But, Marion Walker, Ponchatoula, Louisiana. I think I said that right. They just played the state championship over the weekend. They unfortunately lost, but I'm telling you, I've watched this film a little bit. He's a burner. I mean, especially at his size, 6'3", he's got a solid frame to put up, maybe 10, 15, 20 pounds on, but really a big fan of his game. And I think that's an excellent recruiting job by Ron Bellamy, who is a Louisiana native. Michigan typically, historically, I don't know exactly the last guy from Louisiana to sign. Maybe Drew Dilio. It's been quite a while, so not a very fertile recruiting ground for Michigan. But props to Bellamy and company for being able to go in there and close that one out, because I know Alabama started to get in late. And so Michigan did a really good job of kind of playing this one to the bell and being able to close it out on the early signing period.
Yeah, well, right there, going back to Bellamy, and before him, the Louisiana touchdown machine, better known as the A-Train, Anthony Thomas. He was from down there in the Bayou too, so they've had a little bit of success over the years. It's tough to get them out of. Most Louisiana guys go to LSU. I mean, there's a large percentage of them. I just take a snapshot. I take a step back and I look at this class. The secondary here, the defensive backs. We are anticipating that Will Johnson, the 5-star corner, he doesn't have that letter in yet, but he's supposed to have a ceremony.
It's supposed to be in an hour and a half or so. Yeah, I think there was some smoke there. I don't know how much I bought that, from other sources and whatnot, but I think that's one Michigan fans. I know you always want to see that LOI come in, but I think they can rest easy until it does. I'm sure it's going to be a celebration. Following in his father's footsteps. So
yeah, you don't want a late surprise that way when it comes.
No, absolutely not.
The class, but when you just look there, Damani Dent, Miles Pollard, look like those guys will be corners, and then Zeke Berry, who Michigan got late, and then Keon Sabb, who flipped here. Yes. I mean, that's some, and they're still waiting on Cody Jones, who's a 4-star DB, waiting for that letter. I haven't seen an update. Maybe it's the same thing. Some of these guys are going to wait until school ends, and then they go to the gymnasium. So
yeah,
there's
a lot of it. Yeah, a lot of it is coordinated through the school to make sure that their classmates can celebrate with them. You see a lot of the like in auditorium and things like that for their friends and family and classmates to be able to celebrate the moment for the student athlete, but also the school, right? So I wouldn't get too worked up over any of those at this point. The one thing, just I have the Rivals commitment list in front of me. It's 22 commitments, number 9 in the country, as you mentioned to Adam just a bit ago. Shout out to Adam for hopping on. The one thing that I notice is a lot of these commitments, and we talked about this last time that I was on with Brandon, is about finding talent, but also fit, right, in that culture, right, that Michigan has built. You don't want to just bring guys in for the sake of bringing them in because they're talented. All these guys are talented, right? But you want to find that right kind of mixture of everything. I see a lot of commitment dates that were last year, that were early this year, when the program was not in a great spot. And I think that, to me, just stands out. When you look at, I think a Marlin Klein, I think was the first commit in this class, September 22nd of 2020, right? And at that point, we didn't know what was going to happen, because the season hadn't started yet, and he stuck through it, right? You look at a guy like Connor Jones as well. He committed in December of last year. I mean, I've been following Michigan since I was a kid. I know there were some rough years with Rich Rod and Brady Hoke. I don't know if there was a time that I felt as down about the Michigan football program as I did in December of last year. And crazy how things can change in a year. But I say all that because these are guys who committed to the University of Michigan in one of its darker hours, stayed pat, and now they're committing and signing with the college football playoff program. I think that's awesome. And I think, again, that's what's important about this class is you've got guys who were willing to sign up when it was hard. It's easy to come to Michigan right now. You're number 2 in the country, 12-1 Big Ten champs, win over Ohio State. You're on a roll on the recruiting trail, right? It was hard to come to Michigan and maybe have to justify it this time last year. So just looking at the commitment list, I think it's incredible. The job the staff did this year to put together a top 10 class coming off of the heels of a 2-4 campaign. Because as we said, winning cures a lot, but you're building those relationships for 2 to 3 years prior to when they sign. So, as juniors heading into seniors, their thought of Michigan is, they went 2-4. They were terrible, right? So shout out to the Michigan staff. I think they did a great job putting together an excellent class. And, there might be a couple more additions, as we mentioned later on this afternoon, but really, really solid class.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Not only 2 wins, but the manner that the season went, and then you really didn't know. I mean, I'm sure other coaches were saying, you really think Jim Harbaugh is going to be around? They cut his salary in half. If they could have, they would have got him out there. If the Bears would have made the playoffs, he'd have been in Chicago. You're really going to go there with all the uncertainty, and you're never going to get into the college football playoff. You're not going to Indy,
right?
Ohio State. Yeah. All happened to your point there. So but you know what? Here's how things have heated up. They say it's a perfect storm, but things have lined up here nicely for Michigan. Not only beating Ohio State and getting to the college football playoff, which of course is really going to help up, but that carousel spinning there, the head coaches, but then those assistants leaving.
Absolutely.
Obviously, Stab, that was big. Venables, out, and Michigan, they could have lost Josh Gaddis. They could have lost Mike Hart. Those guys' names at least were mentioned for some different jobs, whether it was Virginia for Gaddis, and then I think Temple there for Mike Hart. But now you have that stability there, so you have that going for you. Then you can show the jewelry and everything else. So yeah, they do. They're sitting in a nice spot, and it way different than what the pitch from last year. Hey, you can come be a part of something. Great school and everything now out and everything else. Now they just walk in and go, hey, look at there.
Yeah.
Supposed to be a ring on that.
Yeah, here's some bling. Hopefully some more coming in the coming weeks. But yeah, again, just Michigan has been fortunate, I would say, with how the coaching carousel has played out. I think Josh Gaddis, I think one more year for Gaddis would be really beneficial for him to be able to be more selective of a job, especially if they continue on the trajectory that they've been on over the last 4, 5, 6 games, as they've started to not settle for field goals in the end zone, but to capitalize on red zone possessions. But just a tremendous job. And you talk about energetic guys and just younger, rejuvenated staff that was able to put this class together without a lot of these guys committing before seeing the results on the field. Imagine what they're going to be able to do in 2023. And there's some big fish out there. Let me tell you, I think Michigan's going to be able to be really selective on the amount of players they want and kind of the talent level they want to get. So 2023, I think, is where you're going to see the dividends pay off from the Big Ten championship. But like you said, you walk into a house and say, hey, we're great recruiters, but also we just won the Big Ten championship. We just beat Ohio State. We went 12-1. We're in the college football playoff. I mean, that and a world-class education, I mean, that is a combination that is going to be hard to beat. I think probably the best combination of football and off-field track record and success from the University of Michigan. I don't know many other schools that can really compete with that. I mean, there's not just academic-wise, but now to bring the football success into it, I think is going to be huge for Michigan recruiting moving forward.
And we do have some breaking news. There's a lot of folks that are, sitting out there just checking out the Maize and Blue review, sitting there in the den and waiting for the news to come in, these different players or flips or whatever news. And we do have some breaking news, and it is coming in the form of, I don't know if I can get that up there right now or not to see. It's Deuce Spurlock, who is making it official, signing with the Wolverines there. So, and that is confirmed by Josh Henske, who looked into whoever was tweeting that, who did have a blue check mark, but Spurlock, and he's one of the linebackers, right? That will
yes.
fit in there. Jimmy Rolder and Michael Pollard also as linebackers in this class right now. Are waiting on the gentleman from Belleville, who could Alexander, Aaron Alexander, could be one of those things where school gets over 2:30, could have one of those ceremonies like we're talking about with Will Johnson. But Spurlock is it.
Yeah, and Spurlock's a kid out of Huntsville, Alabama. Definitely, I would say probably a bit more of a project as far as transitioning to the Big Ten level as a linebacker, but a lot of athletic ability. I think that's what you're going to see with this class. There's a lot of high upside guys that they were really able to take a chance on, because you think about Michigan right now, Nikai Hill-Green is a freshman, redshirt freshman. You think about Junior Colson as a freshman. There's a lot of guys who got a lot of valuable playing time. I think they're able to kind of take a risk on some guys, right? Like Aaron Alexander is very raw. Very, very raw, but he's a tremendous athlete. So, Jimmy Rolder's film was very impressive. He's definitely more in the mold of an inside linebacker. And then I think Micah Pollard is definitely more of an edge guy. I think he's got the frame, 6'3", 200. I think he's got the frame to be able to come off the edge a bit more. So I really like the linebacker class. I think it's a high upside kind of group. You know, and I like the guys they took last year too. You know, Junior Colson, Tyler McLaurin. So I really like what Michigan's been doing at linebacker. George Helo's proved to be a tremendous coach. The linebackers were fantastic this year, aside from maybe the Michigan State game, but I don't know how much of that was due to tempo, right? So, but I thought the linebackers played tremendous this year. Was a big fan of how they played throughout the season. So I'm curious to see how these guys, you know, project to Michigan and you know, potentially after a year or two of seasoning and strength and conditioning, what they'll be able to do when they see the field.
Yeah, you know, you're a linebacker. You want to play inside. You know, Michigan's got the great heritage here and the long line of outstanding inside linebackers. But now, just with going to the 3-4 and what McDonald was able to do with the Ajabo, and obviously Aiden Hutchinson, who is you know, the presumptive #1 pick now for the Detroit Lions, if it ends up going out like that. Winning on the field helps, but you know, putting guys in the draft and having them go #1 overall and just seeing it, and for Ajabo, there couldn't be any better testament for some of these guys that you might not have seen a heck of a lot. Like I think you mentioned Harrell, but you know, TJ Guy, a couple of these other guys that you're thinking about, and they could just say, hey, look, you know, Ajabo was, you know, he came in a little bit last year, but it's not like he was out there and you thought, oh man, this is a star is born or anything. And he just blew up. I think that's a great thing for those coaches to say, look, man, there's some playing time. I would think both of those guys would, I don't know. I hope Ajabo stays around, but he can do whatever he wants. He's going to go in the first round. So I would guess that he would leave. So a lot of playing time there as an outside linebacker or defensive end, if you're looking at Michigan here.
Yeah, I think, and it's tough too, right? We mentioned this earlier. It's crazy. The edge position is kind of the one where Michigan's struggling in the 2022 class. I mean, they missed out on Joshua Josephs, who Michigan was very enamored with, was a big fan. He committed to Tennessee, not Kentucky. But, you know, again, Cavante Henry is a bit wavering right now. He's signing in February. Don't know what that's going on. Ethan Burke flips to Texas, right? So, but like you said, Jalen Harrell came on strong at the end of the year. TJ Guy had a sack against Maryland. You know, Mike Morris, I think, is not necessarily a pure pass rush guy, but is more of kind of plays both the run and the pass. I think he's a very solid player. Taylor Upshaw, I think, is a very solid player as long as he's not getting penalties in the Big Ten Championship.
There you go.
But they've got a lot of talent up front. You know, you mentioned Rayshon Benny earlier. He's a guy who's going to be able to play inside outside, I think. And then, again, potentially Derek Moore, 6'3", 250, I believe, out of St. Francis in Maryland. Same high school as Blake Coraman, the guy Hill Green. So there's a lot of talent up front. And you're right. I mean, Michigan has over the last, since Jim Harbaugh has been here, look at the edge talent, just the defensive line talent they put into the NFL. I mean, you know, just overall, you think about Willie Henry, you think about Chris Wormley, Taco Charlton, Rashawn Gary, Chase Winovich, Maurice Hurst, Kwity Paye, now Hutchinson Ajabo. I'm missing some guys. I mean, it's truly ludicrous how many talented players Michigan has put into the NFL on their defensive line, and specifically the edge position. So I think Josh Uche, another guy, right? I mean, for Michigan to be able to go, I think they've proven that they can go and get a guy who's an athletic freak and is a bit raw and get them to the NFL, right? Uche was a day 2 pick with the Patriots. So, and I think Ajabo will be a top 10 pick. I think he's gone. I think he should go. You know, I'm in sales. Take the money, man. You know, that's what you came here for. That's what you go to college for, is to make a living. Go get your money. You know, go win a championship and then go get your money, right? So, but for Michigan, like you said, again, they've had the, I think, top 5 amount of draft picks since Harbaugh's been at Michigan, right? And so now you're able to couple that with everything else, with the academics, the tradition, the winning now, right? The Big Ten championships, the hardware. It's going to go a long way, because I think Michigan is that total package and are going to be able to compete with the likes of Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, you know, one thing you mentioned about Ajabo and whether he would go to the pros, and I agree, you know, he probably should and he probably will go. But, you know, I was thinking about some of the players that aren't playing in the college football playoff, like the Peach Bowl, Kenneth Walker and Kenny Pickett, whether or not they should play. Right. And, you know, we've gone back and forth over the years here, but with now name, image, and likeness, I would think that there would be an opportunity to say, look, this is the insurance policy. They could get very creative with it. Let's just say Ajabo was thinking, you know, I wouldn't mind staying around. You say, look, Michigan could say, look, we're going to underwrite whatever it would be. Your first round talent, you know, here's the Lloyds of London. You know, we're going to pay the premium. You know, that's all for you. You come back, you're going to be a millionaire. You leave, you're going to be a millionaire. and it offsets a little bit. So maybe you can even go higher. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't heard anybody talk about that, but it occurred to me, like if Michigan State really wanted K9 to play in the Peach Bowl, they could do that. And if I was Kenny Pickett, I think you could make up a lot of ground in the first round. Possibly you go out there against that Michigan State defense and throw for 400 yards. You might be able to work yourself into the first round. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Think about with that NL.
Well, and I was listening to ESPN radio last night in my truck, and it was Rick Neuheisel was talking, and I'm very much for the players making the best decision for them, but he made a great point talking about guys missing bowl games, and you get one last chance to play with your guys. It's tough. I get, because look, Jake Butt got hurt, right? Like I understand that,
Yes,
Jalen Smith from Notre Dame, right? That was kind of the first big one. It's like, oh my gosh.
Well,
it's just tough.
Back in the day, in the
right?
Game.
It's tough though because look, it is a dangerous game. It is football, and I just think about playing with guys that I grew up with, and being able to play that last game together. That always sticks with you. So and especially look, these guys who are going to be top 5 picks. I get it more to an extent, but I don't know, Will Grier was one of the examples they used. He was a 3rd round pick, right? And do you think now he wishes he would have played that last game because he sat out the bowl game? I don't know. I get where the players come from. I get both sides of it, but I've always been much more on the side of, take the game off if you want. But after listening to that, I was like, that's a great point. You get one last chance with your guys. So who knows? As a side note, I would love to see Kenneth Walker and Kenny Pickett play. I want to see him play at full strength because these bowl games are supposed to mean something. They're supposed to be something you earn. And to to quit or to not play with your teammates, it's tough, man. It's really tough, but money changes things, and I get that. I'm not naive, so it's just it's an interesting dynamic in college sports over the last 5 to 10 years.
Pay the premiums. That's what I say for the colleges, for the name, image, and likeness. Do that. I know, Tanner, I don't know how much time you got, but I was going to ask you about the offensive line. I know you like, the offensive line play down there. And I did see today that Hassan Haskins made it official that he's accepted an invite to the Super Bowl. And Aaron Stuber, I didn't know for sure, those guys have extra years if they want to use them, but, he's also going there. So there's an offensive lineman that'll be off the board. And, they've got a lot of good ones in the fold right now that are ready to get in there that actually have already played. I don't think anybody a true freshman here. Andrew Gentry, though, is kind of a wild card since 2 years older. Here in Michigan brings in the first offensive lineman. He came in. It's a good sign. He wanted to be, when they say, first one in, last one to leave, Alessandro Lorenzetti, that was the first LOI. That. I don't know if I'd have been the first one up at 5 o'clock, sending it in or whatever else, but he was. Connor Jones as well. He's a giant out of Colorado.
Yeah.
The one thing that stands out, these guys are monsters.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you see that trend of, hey, let's get a guy who's 6'7", 6'8", and put some bulk on him, right? And that's worked very well for a lot of programs. You want that more athletic, right? That kind of that prototypical tackle, especially out of the tackles. And the guard and center, you can get a guy who's 6'3", 6'4", 300 pounds already. But with tackles, you need that more athletic ability, especially when you look at a guy like David Ojabo coming off the edge. I mean, runs a 4.5 probably. I'm sure he'll test amazing. But, I think, Lorenzetti, when I watched his film, he's got a nasty streak to him, right? He finishes his block. He plays pissed off. I love that. I mean, that's, when you watch offensive linemen, that mean streak is extremely important to me. Being able to finish your blocks, you got to be a different kind of cat to play offensive line. So, and then Connor Jones, again, 6'7", 285 out of Colorado, just a big guy. And then Andrew Gentry, I mean, look, for all intents and purposes, he's a class of 22 member. He'll be a freshman with these guys as well, although he's going to count towards the 2020 class. Took a 2-year mission. Watched his film. I mean, man, I'll tell you what, if you want to laugh, Dennis, just go watch like a minute of his film and just think about these poor kids who,
Jones?
No, Andrew Gentry.
Okay.
So yeah, top 100 kid 2 years ago. I'll tell you what, man, you think about these kids maybe had a rough week, maybe some pre-calc was getting to them, and then Friday night you got to go play a kid who's 6'8", 290 pounds, just mauling you to death. So his film is a fun watch. Feel bad for those kids on the receiving end of the pancakes, but the guy's a monster. And, again, wild card I think is the right way to say it because I have no idea how somebody's going to respond after 2 years of not being in football, shape, right? I mean, he may be in shape, but he's not in football shape, right? You got to have enough reps to be able to get to that point again. So, but I mean, you talk about a guy who's 2 years more mature now, right? So who knows? Typically one of the things with offensive linemen is their body needs to mature a little bit, right? And that's typically why you don't see true freshmen or even redshirt freshmen playing all the time. Zach Zinner's kind of the exception there. That's not the rule. So I think for him, 2 years older, but still a freshman, it may be a year or two. I don't know, but the guy is going to play at Michigan and he's going to play at a high level. I mean, I know Michigan's still on Josh Connerly, who will sign in February, who's a big-time guy out of Washington State. So, they're still looking to try to add another offensive tackle. But I'll tell you what, Andrew Gentry really shores that up. And he's like a 5-star commitment, honestly. He was a top 80 guy 2 years ago. So I have a lot of confidence in his ability just from watching his film and some of the camp stuff. I think he's going to be a stud. So that's a huge pickup for Michigan.
Yeah, mention those offensive linemen, Lauren Zeddy, Connor Jones, and Andrew Gentry. All of those letters are in on the offensive side. The 2 tight ends we already talked about, Marlon Klein, who was in first. He's a great story on that the campus that he lives in down in Georgia. I read a story about that. It was amazing. Colston Loveland coming from the fertile recruiting ground of Idaho.
Yeah.
Tyler Morris and Marion Walker, the flip from Notre Dame. Their letters are in. The running back, C.J. Stokes. Alex Orji is the quarterback in this class. He's a flip from Va Tech. And then on the defensive side, the letters that are in so far, Mason Graham, the defensive tackle, Michael Pollard, Deuce Spurlock, Jimmy Rolder, those guys, linebackers. And then 4 defensive backs right now, Damani Dent, Miles Pollard, corners, their letters in. Zeke Berry, probably a safety, maybe. And then Keon Sabb, the flip from Clemson. Their names are in there. Will Johnson, Aaron Alexander, they're from the state of Michigan, waiting on something at their school to have a presentation there. But as Tanner mentioned earlier, it's not supposed to be anything to worry about with.
There shouldn't be. It's recruiting, but we haven't been indicated anything, and I haven't heard anything from Brandon either. So I don't think there's any. I mean, he's a legacy. So
coming up at 3:00, Derek Moore, the defensive end, the 4-star from Maryland. We talked with Adam Gorney. He made it sound like Michigan's the team to beat there. Darius Clemens had been in Auburn. I don't know. We could lean. They were in first. But he. Knows Andrell Anthony, spent some time at East Lansing there, knows the state of Michigan. Darius Clemens, I watched the interview of him last night talking about he didn't know just how serious of an academic institution Michigan was, and it seemed like, wow, it kind of blew him away. So, there he is between Auburn and Michigan, but he's a 4-star wideout. Those are some of the guys that Michigan are waiting on here. Kenneth Grant, a defensive tackle. Jaden Denigal, the QB from California. I would think that would be one to watch here as the day plays out. And then Cody Jones, the defensive back out of Tennessee. He's a 4-star guy waiting on those letters. And, I know a lot of people at work or whatever else are sitting there waiting with the Maize and Blue Review to see if these guys, those letters have come in. How about who you think might play first here, Tanner? Rod Moore wasn't even in for spring.
Yeah.
A huge contributor for Michigan. Junior Colson, you mentioned him a little bit earlier. He was in for spring. He was a true freshman. Obviously, he contributed big time. Donovan Edwards later, but he got in, was a pretty big impact. You saw what he was able to do against Maryland, and then the one-handed grab that he had against Ohio State. I'm thinking, McCarthy got a little bit of play.
Yeah, a little bit.
True freshman, yeah. And one of this class, would you say, you could see him getting in there and getting some time as a true freshman?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it's tough with Michigan because they play so many guys, right? I mean, they're not really concerned about red shirts. If they're close and they're under that 4-game mark, they will make sure that they preserve it. But it's tough. I think obviously Will Johnson, right? I mean, he's going to play, right? 5-star out of Gross South Point in Michigan. I think my underdog maybe to play, who did get a bump from us at Rivals, is Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of the Los Angeles area. I think the kid's a stud. I love his film. He plays in one of the toughest districts, one of the toughest conferences in the state of California and probably in the country. I think he's a legit 6'3", 290. Sometimes you see the recruiting profile and the weight and the height don't always match up. I think he's legitimately 6'3", 290. Really good wrestler. For me, I think about Mike Martin, was a state champion wrestler in the state of Michigan, who played defensive tackle at Michigan. So, I love defensive linemen that are wrestlers. I've started to follow college wrestling a little bit more closely. And I'll tell you what, I just think it provides so much for these young guys. And I wish I would have wrestled as a youngster. It would have helped me in my game a little bit. But I just think Mason Graham, I think he's that havoc-wreaking defensive tackle, that interior defensive tackle that Michigan's been missing since Mo Hurst. I love his game. I am a big fan of his. I think he will play like a top 100 type impact. And I think there's going to be opportunity for him to play early. Michigan likes to rotate their defensive line. So I think if he performs, comes in and ready to go, I think he will play a lot. I think I'm looking at the commit list here. I mean, obviously Keon Sabb's a stud.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. You look at those guys that are standing up or on the back line. The one thing that we don't know, Michigan's got a lot of corners and safeties that didn't get a lot of time. And, a couple of those guys I'm sure are going to hit the transfer portal. Nothing here to report, but when you just have the numbers that they did and the guys that didn't really see the field, and we know that Brad Hawkins was a super senior. He's moving on. I would anticipate that Dax Hill would as well.
Yeah.
So you got Rod Moore, who got a lot of time in there, but then you start looking through both Zeke Berry and Keon Sabb. I would think.
Yeah, Zeke Berry. Yeah, he's in the same stratosphere as Mason Graham for me. Watching his film, comes from one of the best programs in the state of California. I mean, I think he should be a 5-star athlete. I mean, I really do. He's legit. I mean, if you haven't, go watch his film. Maybe not as twitchy, maybe not as much burst, but very Jabril Peppers-like. Plays all over the field, running back, receiver, safety, right? I mean, comes up, plays in the box, makes plays in the run game. So really, really big fan of Zeke Berry. I think he's going to be an immediate impact, and I think he's going to be an all-conference type player, maybe an all-American. I think that highly of him. I think, Damani Dent is a guy who maybe needs a little bit of seasoning, but I think has a lot of potential. But I love Miles Pollard. I mean, he's that lankier, that rangy type of corner that is kind of that Richard Sherman type, right? Maybe not the best athlete, but, very technical, right, with his ability. So I really like Miles Pollard. Comes from one of the best programs in the state of Tennessee. And I think they played IMG last year. He held up very well. I don't think he's a 3-star. I think he's more of a 4-star prospect. We have him as a 3-star at Rivals. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys. Tyler Morris, wide receiver out of LaGrange Park, Illinois. He's a highly recruited guy. He played a lot with JJ, so we'll see what happens next year. Not going to get into the quarterback controversy, but, he's coming off major surgery, though, right? He had a major injury to his knee, so I don't know how quickly he'll be able to get acclimated, but he's a guy who has a lot of talent. And but again, you mentioned that, I think about the receiver room, that's stacked, kind of the corner room, the safety room where maybe some guys are leaving. I don't know. The receiver room, there seems like a log jam and a lot of guys who got a lot of playing time. I don't know if anybody's a threat to transfer, but there's a lot of guys that played a lot of meaningful snaps for Michigan, and I don't know how much room's going to be there, but there's some very talented guys coming in, maybe another talented wide receiver joining the room here in a couple hours.
Yeah, and you got to mention that Ronnie Bell's coming back.
Exactly.
Probably would be that number 1 target.
Yes.
I don't know how many balls, but as soon as you say that, like Andrell Anthony, it's not like you were saying automatically like, oh, well, he's going to get out there and he's going to hit.
Right.
It wasn't like a 5-star for, they took him out of East Lansing but you just saw him a little bit more in each and every game, and then of course the lightning bolt, the 93-yarder against Michigan State, and it wasn't just a one-time deal. They kept targeting me. He was like the number 1 target in that game, and he came up with some other catches and some other games there, some big time ones. Thinking about that one, he went up and had the one-handed grab late in the season there. So you don't count either of those guys out. That's what you mentioned. Marion Walker, maybe he'll be a wide receiver, maybe he'll be a safety there. But you mentioned that what was state championship game, he just blew up and.
Yeah. He had 8 catches for 173 yards and a touchdown, I believe, was his final stat line. So, yeah, it's a great problem to have if you're Michigan. I mean, I just think about Michigan. You got Roman Wilson, Mike Sainer still I think Mike Sanders still is one of the most underrated players on the team. I mean, his blocking ability. I mean, you talk about being able to turn a 5-yard run into a 50-yard run is because of wide receivers blocking downfield, and Mike Sanders still is the best on the team. Ronnie Bell's great at it too, but obviously he's been out. So, Roman Wilson, AJ Henning's starting to get more involved in the run game, especially, with the reverses. CJ's the best receiver on the team right now. They got a lot of studs at receiver, man. So it's definitely a good problem to have. But as always, the cream's going to rise to the top, right? And so I think with Michigan, you bring in some highly recruited freshmen, some very talented guys. It's going to push everybody. I think it's going to be a good problem to have for Michigan.
Yeah, and we know last year when it came down, the portal, some other schools like Michigan State, they hit it hard and with good success, some positive success there. Michigan went they got Jordan Whitley, out of the as a defensive tackle. I don't know. It was Alan Bowman. I guess he would have been a portal guy.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. From Texas Tech, and then Dalen Baldwin. Baldwin's got more eligibility too, who was a very solid player. I mean, he didn't take over, right? But he was huge. He had a huge catch against Nebraska that led to a touchdown. I was at that game, and it was a great catch from him, great throw and catch from Cade. I mean, there's so many guys that are playmakers for Michigan right now, which is crazy to think about, but they've hit at a very high rate on a lot of guys, right? I mean, you think about Mikey Sanders, still not very highly rated, been instrumental to this. I mean, if you watch anytime, especially because the Donovan Edwards, swing passes have become a huge part of the offense. The reason that those are so successful is because Mike Sanders still is a hell of a blocker. Right? If you don't have that block, it's harder. You can't stretch it to the sideline, right? So the defender can use the sideline as another defender. So it's just a lot of great receivers on this Michigan team, and so it's tough. I don't know where these guys are going to find playing time, but again, a great problem to have.
Yeah, and it's McCarthy. Whether it's just Baldwin getting down, he was on the receiving end of that first game of that 69-yard throwback across, and I think him on another one.
Against Wisconsin.
Yeah, down the field. So, the target there. So, how he ends up fitting in. If you're just watching here now, it's like, what's going on with Michigan? Where are they at? Things are going well here. The one they missed out, and he's delayed his signing to February, is Cavante Henry, the defensive end out of California. So we'll see what happens there. Michigan did lose out on Ethan Burke, defensive end. These are the developments that happen in the AM. He's from Austin, Texas, as Tanner pointed out. That's where the University of Texas is, right? So, he flips to Texas. But Michigan flipped Marion Walker from Notre Dame. He is an athlete, probably a wide receiver, but we'll see. Alex Orji is a 3-star quarterback that Michigan flipped from Virginia Tech. Could be a linebacker, could be a quarterback. Well, we'll see. And then Dion Walker, a defensive tackle right out of Detroit that Michigan thought, he seemed like he was torn. He was still visiting Michigan, but he's going to end up and stay with Kentucky. But then Michigan flipped Keon Sapp. So there's been some flipping going both ways, but Michigan coming out, if you're just talking about the flips, they flipped Sapp and they flipped Orji and Walker and lost Burke. So they flipped 3 and got flipped by 1, if that's the way to say it.
Yeah, not a bad day. I mean, it's recruiting. These things are going to happen. I know Twitter was a buzz last night that Michigan was going to strike out on every remaining target. They did not, and they should not moving forward either. I think Michigan feels pretty good about the 2 guys coming up, and Clemens and Moore. So, it's a great class. You're going to have those flips. Look, a kid from Austin, as you said, I mean, it's where the University of Texas is located. Texas is, Texas football is religion to a lot of folks down in the state. So it is what it is, right? And Henry, there's still, the bell you have not heard the bell on that one. I think it's not great for Michigan that he's waiting to February, but that's why it's recruiting. You recruit to the whistle. So we'll see what happens with him. But all in all, a very, very good class. A lot of star power. A lot of really solid players. So I think Michigan's going to be happy with their haul, especially if they can go close it out and go 2 for 2 this afternoon.
Yeah, well, and I was indicating that this particular player right here.
That's a big one.
That's Cody Jones, the defensive back out of Tennessee. He is a 4-star. And I'm just looking at Josh Henske saying that and putting this out. that he is in. So that is good news. And he's one of the more highly rated DBs. I think you might want to put him in the conversation.
Yeah, he might play very early. He's very good. That was one where Tennessee was trying, the hometown kid, right, trying to make a run. And I know Illinois was there as well. So, interesting recruitment, but Michigan, closes it out, keeps him in the fold. That's a big win for them. I think he's a really solid player. So, yeah, you start to see these names trickle in, start to breathe the sigh of relief a little bit. Although, with Steve Sarkisian around, maybe signing a letter of intent doesn't mean as much. You can just still go and, talk to Xavier Worthy, even though he signed his letter of intent. I don't know. But I think if you're a Michigan fan, you got to feel pretty good about the LOIs rolling in.
Yeah, well, and don't hold your breath, but you're waiting around to about 3:00. That's when Will Johnson is supposed to sign at his school, and that's what is expected to happen. So until that happens, I know you'll be a little bit nervous out there, but that is expected to happen. Even though he's probably, hopefully he's just turned off his phone at this point. I don't know what's happening in class. It must be hard to be in class when you're getting ready to make this announcement. You got, 100 college coaches, over there. Hey, Nick Saban's trying to, you're declining FaceTime. I don't know how that goes. I don't know either.
That's definitely the technology is changed the way we recruit and the way kids are recruited. So it's an interesting dynamic for sure.
Also around 3:00, Derek Moore, defensive end, is supposed to make his announcement. He's a 4-star out of Maryland. Darius Clemens, wide receiver. He is out of Oregon, right around 3:00 as well. A 4-star wide receiver. And Michigan looking good for both of those guys. And now Aaron Alexander could be the same situation, just waiting for high school to end to make his announcement there at Belleville. And then, 2 guys to keep an eye on, the Kenneth Grant, a defensive tackle out of Indiana, and then Jaden Denegal, a quarterback out of California. Now, Michigan just flipped a quarterback, and then Denegal out in California. So, I would say Denegal would be one to keep an eye on. Hey, he can do whatever he wants. We'll see. But just because he's from California, because Michigan's already they'll probably bring in 2 quarterbacks. You can never have enough. But at least one of those situations to keep an eye on. And what does California know? These guys might be thinking about, their school's getting done at, 2-3 o'clock, which is not, to after 5 around here.
Right. It's a long day, especially when you have the West Coast kids, because there's so many of them that impact the rest of the country and as far as recruiting goes.
And I'm still sitting on, the possibility of a surprise. You never know, big time surprise this afternoon. It could happen. Look at Deion Sanders flipped the number 1 player.
Crazy, man. That was nuts. I think I mentioned this last time I was on. I've been following recruiting. I think the first recruitment I really remember following was Terrell Pryor. I remember watching like Sam McGuffey's film. I was like, oh my God, Michigan's going to win the national championship. But this is the craziest. This is probably the craziest thing I've ever seen in recruiting. Good for him though. I love it. Anytime that a kid that's a 5-star doesn't go to Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, or Bama, it's cool with me. I like to see more talent distribution, more parity. But man, it's awesome. You've seen it in basketball, right? You've seen 5-stars go to the HBCUs. I think it's awesome. I love it. Happy for the kid, happy for, Deion Sanders. So that's a crazy one. I'd love to see a little behind the scenes. I don't know if there's any Jackson State, version of Brandon Justice or Josh Henske, but I'd love to see what they have to say, because that's pretty nuts, man. That's pretty amazing. So yeah, I'm happy for Jackson State though. They're a great program, and I like Deion Sanders and seems to be doing a pretty good job. If I'm Florida State, man, I might be calling up Prime and saying, hey, you want to bring Travis Hunter back over to Tallahassee, run it back with us. So I don't know. It's a crazy time. I feel a little bit bad for the Florida State fans. That's got to be a gut punch.
Well, you know what? Hire Deion Sanders. Like you just said. Hire Prime Time if you want.
Absolutely.
Prime recruits. Tanner, do you got to go and get back to work?
I do. Yeah. But it was great chatting, and I'm sure we'll be able to chat a little bit more about once we see what happens this afternoon, and kind of finalize the class and be able to look at it from a whole, and maybe get me and Brandon on here. That'd be a lot of fun.
Sounds good to me. I'll be here all day just waiting. So we'll see.
All righty, sir.
All right. Have a great day. Thanks,
Dennis.
There he is, Tanner Wooten. He's a recruiting analyst here at the Maize and Blue Review. I'm going to stay here, recap everything. Tanner was just telling his stories about when he started in recruiting. I go back working in radio in Ann Arbor. There's two things. In 1995, I can remember getting a VHS tape of the 95 class and then doing an appearance. And we had a cook-off, a rib-off, and then we're also showing on a loop on a VHS tape the 95 class. But, that class had Tom Brady in it and Charles Woodson as a running back out of Fremont, Ohio. We're watching it might have been black and white video back then in 95. I'll tell this story now. He's not a coach anymore at Michigan, but back in the day, I was in the football building and I saw Fred Jackson, who was he was the recruiting lounge. It's been a while. They're probably not there anymore. It's been a few years, but Fred saw me walking by. I was like, "Hey, coach, what's going on?" He said, "You want to see something? Come in here." I walked in and they had the TV and he was showing me some high school film of a running back. And I sat down and watched it. And I had not watched, much high school film, certainly of big time prospects of guys that Michigan was recruiting. But, I sat down there and watched. He said, "What do you think of this guy?" And I'm watching, and it was like in a video game where a guy's speed is 10 and everybody else's speed is 2. This guy's just racing by everybody into the end zone, touchdown. I was like, this is too good to be true. And he's like, "Yeah, we're not going to get him. He's going to USC." It was Reggie Bush's high school tape. It was amazing to see just how good he looked. But, you see some other impressive film if you want to look at somebody who was amazing in high school as well. And here's somebody that's ended up going to Central Michigan, Antonio Brown, who played quarterback in high school in Florida. Watch that guy's high school tape. A southpaw quarterback who just scrambles and, can throw the ball a million miles and then would just scramble and weave it in and out and, go for touchdowns. And, it was amazing from those guys. We do have feedback coming in here. We'll recap everything, see right where we're at, and get you up to speed on who's in, who's out, who's coming, everything else that is going on. Here on National Signing Day, Antoine, if young defensive linebacker, edge rusher, I would definitely want to come to Michigan and play in the Mike McDonald system. Yeah, well, Antoine, yeah. You're looking at David Ajabo and Aiden Hutchinson. Playing time, scheme, system, success, all those things that you're looking for. I would think that it would be, something that you could use as somebody that's recruiting out there. Here's more. D. Brown. If Ajabo stays, I would be upset. He needs to get paid. Let's see here. We got more coming in. Blow them up when they put a cap on the coach's salary. I'll listen to the players having a cap. And you got chaos in college football without a cap. Players will transfer for the biggest amount of money. Well, the part I was talking about getting paid, and this is the different side now with the name, image, and likeness. We see, schools that were already going into the gray area or flat out, giving cash inducements before this against the rules. Then, did they already have this system in place where now, you can just go ahead and is the NCAA really checking on it? What's the intent? Like, the thing is, well, that's not the intent of what name, image, and likeness. It's not supposed to, it's not supposed to be an inducement to go to a school. But do you think like Texas A&M is just getting lucky on all these guys, or are they coming strong with the name, image, and likeness, whatever they're promising? Maybe it is cash up front. Maybe it's, cryptocurrency, NFTs, all these different things, the possibility of, and that's why a lot of folks like myself were waiting on Michigan to spring this, because Jim Harbaugh, there's a lot of things with Jim Harbaugh when he came in, but, he tried doing some things that were, not against the rules, but, we're in there where you could say, hey, let's have these satellite camps. Being able to, it's not like a great idea. Let's have signing with the stars. Let's take players and let's fly them around the world. All these different things. So I was thinking that Harbaugh would have in Michigan football and basketball and everything else. They would have something up their sleeves when it came to name, image, and likeness that they would present out there. But, they appear to be doing it, where it's not public information. Maybe we'll find out that they've already had some things, and this is what they have going. This is their plan with it and everything else. But people are waiting around to hear about some of that. But Michigan has, with Rivals, a team ranking of number 9 heading into today, and the numbers that have come in here. I'll start on the offensive side. Michigan had the first letter coming in from Lorenzetti, Alessandro Lorenzetti. He is a tackle prospect. And then on the offensive side, Lorenzetti, Connor Jones, 2 tight ends, Marlin Klein, Colston Loveland. Those letters are in. There's 4. A Marion Walker, there's 5. He's the flip from Notre Dame. Tyler Morris, wide receiver, there's 6. CJ Stokes, running back, 7. Alex Orje is, where am I at? 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 on the offensive side. Letters confirmed in. On the defensive side, Mason Graham, defensive tackle, Micah Pollard, Deuce Spurlock, Jimmy Rolder. There's 4 on the defensive side. Letters that are in. Linebackers, the defensive backs, Damani Dent, Miles Pollard, Zeke Berry, Keon Sabb. So there's 8. So there you are, 8 and 8 right now on the defensive and offensive side. The letters are in 16. However, Will Johnson, the 5-star, when school's out, 3:00 ceremony expected to make it official for Michigan at that point. That would have it at 17. Derek Moore and Darius Clemens, defensive end, wide receiver. Those guys around 3:00 could be 18, 19. And then I'm waiting on, I didn't put Cody Jones now, 9 on the defensive side. Didn't put him on the big board here. But that's getting you up to where you're at 19. And then Aaron Alexander out of Belleville, still expecting him to sign. That gets you up to 20. Denigo, the quarterback out of California. And then Kenneth Grant, a defensive tackle out of Indiana, get you over 20. And then, you'll see what happens if there's anybody that Michigan can flip late, or if there's somebody undecided that they are just working on and working the phones, and it can come up with a huge surprise later on this afternoon. I'll look back to see if we have any late developments here. I see a lot of people here on YouTube sending messages and getting in. Let's read some of them. Here's Bloom up today. You don't have chaos with coaches leaving powerhouse programs for more money and opportunity. I'm just asking questions here. All you have to do is change the rules slightly. NLI, you have to sit out a year if you transfer, something like that. This guy's talking about the money part here. And anything more on what we're talking about here today with National Signing Day? I don't mind people having a little fun here on the feedback. Jesse, the Big Ten gave the division to dominant. If they can't win the Big Ten West, it's hard to believe they'll win anywhere. It's pretty sad. I think they're talking about Nebraska here. In fact, that's where it's coming from. So there you go. And Brown's saying Nebraska will be back. It's just a matter of time. I don't know if that's how Cornhusker fans feel. It's just a matter of time. They have had some time. So there are the numbers and where Michigan is sitting right now. And over the next hour, that's when it's going to be interesting to, see what happens. And just until Will Johnson's name comes through here, we'll wait and see how that ends up playing out. See how this class, it looks like for sure right now, if you had to predict, it's going to be a top 10 class for Michigan this year. They got hot late, and because of the coaching stability, also other coaches with the carousel leaving, you think of Brent Venables there at Clemson, and Michigan being able to get Keon Sabb. a 4-star safety. That was a direct result, it appears, because of an assistant leaving the Tigers, and Michigan being able to benefit there. I think the same thing with Marion Walker. Maybe he would ended up flipping, but when you do have a head coach that goes with Brian Kelly going on down to the South, then, it does give a player an opportunity to say, hey, am I really firm here? And obviously Walker was not. I don't know what the situation was with Va Tech and the potential quarterback or potential linebacker in Alex Orji, but we'll see how that one ends up playing out. All right, any late names coming through here? I'm going to check for you here as we do get to the top of the hour or past it. If any of these, I do Spurlock. I didn't mention him either, so that's he was not on my board. Or maybe I did mention him. It was Cody Jones. That's right. The defensive back that I didn't have named there. So I still think we're sitting back and we're waiting on Will Johnson this afternoon, along with Kenneth Grant, Denigo, the quarterback from California, Aaron Alexander out of Belleville, Michigan here. And maybe when class is dismissed, they head to the cafeteria, get the microphones there, do some interviews, and say, hey, yeah, I'm going to Michigan. And then the next phase or the next kind of targets we look for to see who's going to come in for spring. And doesn't mean that you can't play as a freshman, but it certainly does help. I mean, Junior Colson and J.J. McCarthy, they were in for spring last year. So was Donovan Edwards. But you know who wasn't? Rod Moore. Rod Moore did not graduate early or come in for spring, the Michigan safety, and he started playing more and more as the season went on, and he's pretty good. And would it be a surprise to see him a lot against Georgia? No. In fact, I think you can expect to see the true freshman out there as a safety for Michigan. So, there it is. Coming up later on today, when the dust settles a little bit and you get these remaining names, and it might all be I don't want to say set in stone. Later on this afternoon, I will chase down Brandon Justice, who's out here calling. He's doing it all still, refreshing, typing, all of the work, getting this class in. We keep an eye on this channel, the TMBR YouTube channel here, because we'll see if we can get Wooten, Tanner Wooten, who joined me a little bit earlier, coming back with the recruiting editor here at the Maize and Blue Review, Brandon Justice, who will then be able to put a bow on this class, see where it's ranked. But it's a good day for Michigan, National Signing Day. All of this, it hasn't been like this for a while, where it's kind of a celebration. You just think about it, where, I don't need to spell it out too much. When Michigan would lose to Ohio State, you sit here like, okay, National Signing Day, Michigan's never going to be able to compete with Ohio State because look at how the Buckeyes do in recruiting. And then you'd say the same thing about Alabama and Georgia. And that's why you mentioned those two teams. Those are the two teams that are standing in the way of Michigan and a national championship this year. And, Georgia's had the number one class. They're sitting here with the number one class this year. I think, would it be right to say 3 out of the last 5 years, maybe even 4 out of the last 5 years, if you include this year? Georgia's had the number one recruiting class. So if you're just going with recruiting, how is Michigan supposed to even have a chance coming up on New Year's Eve? Well, because you can develop players and they can end up being outstanding players. And you look at the 2018 class for Michigan that was ranked outside the top 20, I think number 24, and all of the different players, you just can go down the list, including their starting left tackle, Ryan Hayes, Hassan Haskins, Ronnie Bell wasn't even a 2-star, they're in that class. But what can help if Michigan can go out and then, what they've done already, it's helping. Plant a flag right here in Ann Arbor saying, come on in. You want to beat Ohio State? You want to go to the college football playoff? Those are things, win the Big Ten. Those are things that, you couldn't say. How many times have you been able to say that? Well, you've never been able to say it. This is the first time that they're taking the trip to the CFP. So we'll see. Maybe it plays out even early this afternoon, but they're able to haul in more. But a top 10 class, not too shabby. Could inch up a little bit, get close to 5. Maybe they get passed up and sitting right there at 10, but probably inside the top 10 for this recruiting class, which is good. Great would be inside the top 5. Being outside the top 10, certainly closer to 15 than 10, you'd be like, you'd hope for a little bit more. Certainly if you're back to 20, you wonder, what happened, but not too shabby for Michigan. We'll see how they finish up. And again, the guys that they are waiting on, but not worried about right now, Will Johnson, 5-star corner, expected to make the announcement at his class. So we'll see if he ends up doing that or not. He is expected to. And then we will talk with you later on. We'll bring in Brandon Justice. We'll go back over this class, the expectations, how it all unfolded today. And thanks for watching. If you're somebody that is watching for the first time, we're here every day at 1 o'clock talking about Michigan, not just on National Signing Day. I'll be here tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We'll be talking about the class, and we'll do the same thing on Friday. Every day we've been talking about the Orange Bowl and the matchup that Jim Harbaugh and company have getting ready to take on Kirby Smart and the Dogs on New Year's Eve. I've just been sitting back. It's nice to have National Signing Day today. Don't get me wrong, but every day, there's sometimes I wish that, the game was coming up this Saturday, but I have not, for the most part. I'm just kicking back and looking down over there and saying, there it is, New Year's Eve. What's it going to be like on New Year's Eve? Well, it's going to be a great day to watch college football. I know that. Watch the JV game with the Tide and Cincy, then the varsity game, Michigan, Georgia, and who knows? As I have said now for a couple of days, I am leaning, making a selection for Michigan in that game. I noticed that not yesterday, but the day before, Monday, I did a show with Michael Spath, and there were a few people saying, you guys got a lot of crow to eat. And I didn't respond. Well, what was the crow? And it could be, there's a number of things I could eat crow for, but one could be that I didn't pick Michigan against Ohio State. I did pick them to come within the 7 points, which I thought, I should get a little credit. I didn't predict them to outright win. I did see the path, though. I thought the path was getting to the fourth quarter and, being able to take a shot then. I didn't think Michigan was going to blow out. And in the end, they did. I mean, that's the surprising part and just how well they played. But, because they played that well and because they came back and, the way they played against Iowa, mostly, certainly in the second half, and the big playability, the things that they've demonstrated all year, big playability and the ability to run the ball. If they can do those two things, then can they get it to the fourth quarter against the Dogs? Yeah. What's going to happen if the Dogs just put up a brick wall with the run game? Well, that's when you're going to have to rely on those QBs and the aerial attack. And you know what? Who's better than Iowa against the run? Wisconsin. Blake Corum nor Hassan Haskins had over 50 yards rushing against the Badgers. Michigan was able to win that game. Now, they knocked out Graham Mertz, who was out of that game in the second half, and it was a close game at the half, just 13-10. So, I'm expecting a close game. But I think Michigan can get it to the fourth quarter, and their big playability will give them a chance to win the game. And I think they deserve a positive pick today. And they got that positive pick on Monday from me. They get it again today. I'm picking Michigan over Georgia in the Orange Bowl. What about you? All right. Get ready for the rest of the day. Thanks for watching. We'll see you here more on, not just on National Signing Day. Hope to see you more here every day on the Maize and Blue Review or on the Den, on the posting board on the Maize and Blue Review. So thanks for watching, for listening. This is all podcast. If you're watching, the podcast goes out every day. You can find it on Twitter at Maize and Blue Review. All of those things available for you. So Have a great day. Have a wonderful rest of this National Signing Day. We'll talk to you a little bit later on today. Goodbye.